Welcome to Show Studio. It's a new set of panels for the season, but what I want to start with is Givenchy. Really interesting topic to talk about because so many different sort of themes are thrown up by this show. Firstly, showing in New York rather than the usual Paris. Celebrity-filled show, 10 years of Riccardo Tisci at Givenchy, so much to talk about. And this, I think, was the show that kind of everyone's been talking about, not just since it happened, but before, because of the way they've gone about it, releasing tickets to the public, kind of teasering information about it. So yeah, really good one to kick off our discussions for this season. But before we kind of dive in, I'll let my wonderful set of panellists introduce themselves, starting with you, Hilary.
My name's Hilary Alexander. I'm a graduate Fashion Week trustee and freelance fashion writer.
My name's Mandi, Lennard, and I run a company called Mandi's Basement.
My name's Norris, I'm a writer and consultant.
I'm Gianluca Longo, I'm contributing European editor for W Magazine and the Fashion Observer.
Very serious. I also realised my chair does this. It's going to be so distracting for the whole season because I'm going to be like, so what does everyone think? So I want to kick off just by asking a little bit about this move to New York, because obviously really smart thing I think a lot of houses are doing are considering kind of popping up in different cities at different points. I kind of cynically you could say, you know, it's just a really good way to get some press because as soon as you make that announcement, there's stories, there's discussion in the press. But what do we think about Givenchy showing in New York? You know, they made some statements about, you know, the American audience having always supported the House of Givenchy. But what do we think this means? Is it nothing more than just kind of an attempt to get new coverage, new people into the show? What do we make of brands hopping around?
Well, I think Tom Ford kind of demonstrated how effective it can be when he showed in LA as opposed to London. And I think maybe after 10 years, Riccardo was just thinking, I need something different.
Yeah.
I want a different atmosphere, ambience, audience.
Yeah. Do we think it is the future of Fashion Week, brands being a little bit more fluid about where they show and even when they show, you know, doing more of these kind of pop-up big events? Because this feels like it could have been kind of, you know, outside of Fashion Week completely. You know, we're seeing a lot of brands doing these kind of pop-up events that often, you know, relate to kind of a cruise or a resort, what have you, where it's really celebrity-filled, really amazing, really interesting. And is that kind of the future, do we think? What's your take, Mandi?
I think we can't confuse it with cruise because that's when they make them tropes across the globe. And I think they can't start doing that with Fashion Week. It just can't work. But I remember when Gareth Pugh won the Andam Prize and suddenly we were all showing in Paris. I'd never done a show in Paris and he'd never shown in Paris. We were all really scared, but we were all so excited. Yeah. And I'm sure that that's what Riccardo was going through. I think his whole team will have thought, oh my God, do we know what we're doing? Yeah. We know it's the right move for us because it's re-energizing the whole team. Yeah. Yeah. It's just a big, impossible challenge, but they're going to make it happen. And I think it's that spirit that, you know, he's celebrating 10 years, and it's just so exciting for him to do that and be bold. And Claire Colson wrote that great thing on Business of Fashion yesterday or the day before about people switching which fashion weeks they're going to go to. I thought she wrote that very well, actually. Yeah. And there are lots of shifting things going on, but they're shifting things in the industry as a whole. The whole landscape is changing with the whole digital, with the whole way that me and my team do our PR now. The rules are just, you know, anything goes. And I think that kind of chutzpah that he's showing by going to New York is brilliant. And of course, all those different layers that you're talking about, the public coming, he even made sure that the students got 200 tickets. The celebrity, I mean, that was wild.
I like the kind of nomadic, you know, kind of feel to it. It's almost sort of slightly like the hippie days when there were happenings. So it's not just a fashion show, it brings in all kinds of other elements. As you say, students, but then you've got artists singing and recycled materials and buses zooming around the city. It sort of turns fashion into a huge event that everyone can be part of.
Yeah, completely.
I always felt that Riccardo and, you know, what he's been doing before Givenchy was very New York. You know, it's always, you know, his fashion has always been so much more mixture of couture and streetwear. So I thought New York has always been the best city where to show rather than Paris sometimes. You know, how many times we've been to Givenchy shows in Paris, you know, with the crushed cars and explosions. I mean, very New York,
so American culture,
so American culture in a way. So I suppose it made sense to be there. You know, the fact that the whole city was celebrating it, you know, remember, it was also to celebrate the opening of the biggest store, the first ever biggest store in America, designed by Riccardo Tisci as creative director. So, you know, they wanted just to celebrate it. So I think it was absolutely perfect. And I must say, as you said earlier, if this show was made in, you know, the mid of April or, you know, at the beginning of July, you know, it would have been exactly the same. So yes, it's happening during New York Fashion Week, but could have done it in a completely different way. I mean, we've seen the clothes, mixture of couture, mixed of menswear, mixed of, you know, all these classic elements that it's been doing for the last 10 years. So it could have been an event any other time.
And what do we think about that act of inviting the public into the fashion show? Because literally they did it with inviting, I think it was 800 people with tickets. But also, as Hilary mentioned, they kind of tried to involve the city. They were streaming in different locations, like Times Square being one of them, and then streaming, I think, through kind of public transport means as well. What do we think of that kind of attempt to engage beyond kind of...
It's the democracy of fashion, isn't it? And I think it's wonderful when a whole city celebrates it. I mean, he's inviting everyone to engage with it. You never see that in any of the fashion weeks. You know, I remember once arriving at Milan Fashion Week and it was a Moschino anniversary. I think it was in the early 90s. And the whole city was celebrating Moschino and there were banners everywhere.
In the street,
And you never see that. So the idea that he's done this is great. And, you know, with Instagram, with social media, you know, you can't keep things secret. So, you know, let them in. It shows great confidence. It's the first big show of New York Fashion Week. I mean, it shows brutal confidence. And also there's the whole poignancy of the date as well. You know, 9/11, you know, a kind of seminal day for a lot of people. You know, a lot of people have got very private thoughts and experiences about that.
I think, you know, that obviously the public and the students who came, they're not going to be able to buy the clothes in a million years.
But then you don't know, maybe the public are the people who are buying it. I think that's what I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
I think they'll be able to afford it in like 10, 15 years. He's just seeding early. You know, there's a jacket in the window that's like, I think worth like 25,000.
But also you have to think they've just announced they're going to do Givenchy denim, so maybe actually that price point. It
but they're the ones that all want the sticker.
Yeah. You love your stickers.
And by
the lanyard, you know, the £45 lanyard that the Net-a-Porter will get 3, and it's like, oh yeah, I can afford that.
It's just to create, you know, brand awareness. I mean, for the most of New Yorkers, Givenchy would have been just a completely a faraway name. We don't even know how to pronounce it. Some people, Givenchy or whatever. So by creating all that and launching the Givenchy jeans, you know, the big party after, you know, it's just brand awareness. Remember, Riccardo is very, he's a popular designer, he's also a populist designer. He loves to spread and to share. I mean, he's very, you know, he's always on Instagram. I mean, this morning, you know, I woke up and he was already there on Instagram, maybe, you know, still not gone to bed. And he's always sharing the love and sharing the passion and sharing his friends and the artists. So it's there, so you can feel it. It's not, you know, isolated on an ivory tower.
It's not lofty at all. It's interesting. I kind of relate in a way the approach to what Olivier Rousteing does as with Balmain. That kind of, it kind of takes us to our next topic as well. The relationship to celebrity, that kind of accessibility in a way. You know, it doesn't feel like it's lofty, but then it's still kind of got these complex references that are really interesting. And I think
they're properly living that life. It reminds me again of Mugler and Gautier back in the day in Paris. And it's a movement, you know, all the people that move with them. And it's not just about the fashion, it's about the culture.
Absolutely.
It's the entourage,
Marina
isn't it?
Abramovic involved.
Like fans.
Well, you know, if you follow Riccardo on Instagram, you know, #gang, you know, he's always putting Givenchy gang, my love. I mean, you know, his birthday parties. Balmain Army. So it's very much like the engaging of, and that makes you know, literally a modern designer, contemporary designer, a designer of today. That I think is so important.
But then I suppose that was always the way. You know, designers always had that little sort of gang of fabulous women or fabulous men or celebrities around them. It's just kind of in a very modern way, and we see it a lot more on social media.
But also when I was involved in his 40th birthday party last summer in Ibiza, And what was interesting about that was there was a lot of celebrities there, but there were a lot of mainstream celebrities there as well. So it's amazing that he can cross that path. And I think sometimes, when you see another mainstream celebrity wearing a t-shirt with the stars or the Rottweiler, you think, oh, here we go again. But actually there's some really beautiful pieces in the collection that a kind of a couture customer wouldn't engage with the obvious pieces. There are some really beautiful, like, if you buy a pair of classic pants from him, and I think there is a customer for that. They are incredible, and he is a brilliant designer.
And the jackets and the shirts. I mean, he's brilliant on that in tailoring.
I don't want to see another shark pendant as long as I live. But,
but do you see a correlation between, say, the t-shirts, for example, which are instantly recognizable, and perhaps football fans who buy the Chelsea's t-shirt or the Arsenal scarf? There's that kind of brand loyalty, if you like.
Well, you could say Benetton rugby shirt.
Yeah, but I think you're right, it's that kind of type of branding where it's not specifically about a logo, but it's about, you want people to know exactly where your clothes are from, and those kind of Givenchy emblems, they're so...
I don't think all his customers are like that. I think he's got really savvy fashion customer who doesn't even want any of that obvious stuff, and I think it's incredible as a designer that he can keep that going
while having that
one doesn't put the other off. I think that's quite amazing.
Very gothic, kind of decadent South American sort of Catholicism, and it's all just gorgeous.
I love that pious aspect, and he does
very,
get
very
really
devout. There's a real devout side to it, and then it comes through in street culture as well, like a t-shirt or what have you, the oversized. I mean, the prints for him, he kind of... Do you remember when everybody was print crazy in fashion? But he was really at the forefront
he's inspired a whole generation.
A whole generation. Him and Raf Simons, they've just really reinvented what menswear is today. In terms of shorts and t-shirts and whatever.
You think of all the brands that couldn't have existed without him doing what he's done. That's interesting because of it being 10 years of him being there. I was kind of reflecting a little bit about, I don't really like the word trends, but the kind of trends that he has started there, and the kind of the ways he's changed what stylish men engage with and want to wear. And you think of all these brands, that just wouldn't work. And if you walk around like contemporary floors of, whether it's Harvey Nicks or Selfridges or what have you, you think, even things like, I wonder if he'd buy Air, or, I guess like what Virgil's doing, it would feel as appropriate if he hadn't kind of set this groundwork, and that's really interesting to reflect on.
I think the whole hip hop thing has been a big layer as well, and that's seen a big shift in the industry. There was one of those graphic charts released 2 weeks ago where they did hip hop references in rap songs, and they did a whole chart through the years from the 80s. And Givenchy was the only one that was going up and up and up. It was just incredible to see.
That's really interesting.
What with mentions?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. How if you listen to kind of like that kind of music from like, I guess like even like 10, 15 years ago, the references, they're quite obvious. It's like, Gucci. Whereas now it's like really specific. It's like
Margiela,
Gucci,
Balenciaga. It's really good. I love that. You should I think that's interesting, those kind of changing fashion references.
But it's kind of interesting to see that, like, he, like, for example, like the Rottweiler t-shirt, or the idea of, just even having an animal on a t-shirt is actually very 80s. It's Krizia, it's Kenzo. And then actually when Kenzo revived, they then used the Givenchy formula to revive their own house, which is actually inspired by original Kenzo. So it was kind of like, they're all feeding off one another and going, we're going to reignite that and get back on it as well.
Going back to what we were talking about with the kind of musicians and the hip hop thing, it is interesting because I think people are still quite cynical about fashion's relationship with celebrity. I think, and I thought it'd reached peak about sort of 4 or 5 years ago when the kind of front row mania started, and now it's kind of got to a whole new level with kind of so many campaigns feature celebrities now. Like it almost feels like the majority do. And do we think fashion? Well, when does fashion and celebrity get it right? What's the future for fashion with celebrity?
I'd like it if they started paying for their clothes. I think that would be a step forward.
Yeah, that's a good.
I think it can be subliminal as well.
Yeah.
Like you could have somebody who isn't an obvious celebrity, but they're the daughter of, or they've got some connection.
Well, it's the influencers now.
Yeah, I think it's like someone like Frances Bean Cobain. I mean, she's just got that's something that we can all engage with, and she's got the tattoo in the right place, and there's just something about her kind of background that is quite cool. But it just depends what brand you are, But I think his front row, Riccardo Tisci's front row, kind of illustrated exactly what we're discussing, because as much as he had the obvious people on that front row, Julia Roberts, Kim and Kanye, there was like Erykah Badu, and there was Ciara, and I think there was a real synergy of guests. I mean, it's insane.
I think that all the celebrities that have been going to, they started to go to Givenchy front row shows, and met Riccardo, whatever, they've always been very coherent. So it's not, sometimes you go to certain shows and you just have on the front row the up and coming actress or someone who has to win the Oscar. So they literally the hot name of the moment.
And rather random.
And random sometimes. They
or
come in
the
from
PR
this
could
season,
get
the
hold
season
of
after completely forgotten. Got a new one. While with Riccardo, it's always been the same lot. From Amanda Lear, or from Liv Tyler. It's the face of Givenchy perfume, or it's that kind of. Or again, the gang, even an entourage, and again with the Kanye and Kim, I suppose, as much as I sometimes don't respect their choices, whatever, but at least I've been very, very close to Riccardo and respected him. So there is a mutual respect that I suppose it works.
I think it's a bit like at Chanel shows, it's not like the celebrities just arrived from another show and they're landing. They've all been having a nice backstage carry on, they've all been styled up to the nines. They haven't just been lent an outfit, they've been actually properly styled by him.
And then I suppose when a designer brand and celebrity endorsement work, because you really can create a world around the brand, the world of a brand around the celebrity, rather than having the random wearing it at a red carpet event or whatever. So it's just put it there rather than.
But don't you think there is a danger, and I think it's already happening, of the relationship between fashion and celebrity becoming too incestuous? When the celebrity then starts doing their own fashion range. I mean, we've seen this with Rihanna, with the Kardashians. I mean, the list is endless.
Kanye as well.
And
Kanye and Adidas.
But then you see it also very successfully with like the Olsons and the Row, Victoria Beckham. I think what's interesting is, I think 5 or 6 years ago, celebrity ranges were like so naff. Like, what was that one that J-Lo did? It was called like Sweet Baby or something.
Or then the one Madonna did for H&M.
Just like absolutely awful. But now they're quite like, celebrities can go in at that high level.
Even Kanye West, didn't he have 2 collections in Paris that were completely flopped?
But do you remember when Victoria Beckham started, she was doing like bejeweled jeans, and then very quickly
it was very juicy scene.
But I think that's interesting, is that now if you're a celebrity who's going to design, you can pitch in at that level, whereas before it was such a kind of lowbrow thing to do.
No, I think but that's also because the company, say whether it's River Island or Topshop or whoever, can afford to pay the huge bucks, because they want the name there as well to publicise their own
but also,
their own
can we
stock.
talk about the weirdest thing is Antonio Banderas going to Central St Martin?
Yes.
What?
Have you not heard about that?
Yeah, he's studying menswear.
Yeah, he's studying menswear at Central St Martin's. I'm not joking.
I'm always tapping Debbie, the secretary in the office at St Martin's, saying, "Oh, come on, give me the gossip on Kanye. Give me the gossip."
At least he's serious. But even Kanye apparently has been seen at the Central St Martin's.
Oh yes,
He's nurturing a lot of young menswear designer to use him for his.
I was thinking about like the funniest celebrities that you can imagine enrolling at Central St Martin's.
I know. Apparently,
Robert De Niro.
People are responding really well to that though, because they're saying, "Here's somebody who's actually going to study it. He's not just going to use celebrity connections. He's actually getting down and dirty and learning the rudiments."
Yeah, it is interesting.
Imagine Tom Cruise turning up at London College of Fashion.
I can imagine.
He could design his own stacked heels.
Yes. he better go to Cordwainers for that.
I think one thing that's interesting, this conversation we're having about celebrity, is I do think there's still a lot of kind of flack levied at brands that work a lot with celebrities, and I think it is seen as the kind of more the more kind of glitzy or sensationalist brands that do it. But I was thinking about it and kind of reflecting, and I think actually a house that works so much with celebrities is Prada and Miu Miu. And if you think that's one of the houses that is seen as one of the most cerebral houses in fashion, it's always talked about as being academic and what have you, but their relationship with celebrity is just as kind of like, just as kind of manic as something like Givenchy or your Balmain.
But they select their people very, very well. Lots of rising stars.
It's that choice that they make.
You know, Haley Steinfeld, you know, all the young starlets. And and I think they're very, very discreet about who they dress.
It is. It's more subtle.
Doesn't really shout. So a lot of the stuff's bespoke. So it might be a plain
you might
black
say that,
thing.
but Haley Steinfeld was front row last night at Givenchy.
She's now got a music career, so there's a whole other thing going on with her. But like back in, I'm talking 3-4 years ago, when she was doing True Grit. But yeah, it's just kind of.
Katie Holmes was the face of Miu Miu, though. Just threw that out
just
there.
Gotta
Sometimes
put that
they
in
get
there.
it wrong.
You had to do that.
I just had to make that little thing.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, I think it's dangerous when like a house does really. I don't know. I think that the Kim Kardashian link with, say for example, Givenchy at the moment. Now she's the muse of like Peter Dundas at Roberta Cavalli. It's like, well, come on, like who are you really a muse of? You know, we all remember when Amanda Harlett made the switch from like Galliano to Carl, and she did that in a very, very discreet kind of like. She had integrity about that switch. Kim, I mean, come on, she's on the front row of Givenchy a few seasons ago. You couldn't even. Kim and Kanye were sat right at the top. This is about 2 or 3 seasons ago. They couldn't see the clothes because they were in that really annoying angle where like you could see the back of everything.
Yeah.
But like on the live stream, that's all you could see was them at the top. And now it's like no celebrities. Then they'll go, but you know, I don't know. It's like I think brands need to sort of have a bit more of a. I understand it creates sort of like a bit of a kind of. You know, you can end up getting whiplash because you think as a brand, are they, because they're saying no celebrities to this show. They're actually turning their back on the industry and celebrities, but then they're seating them so that actually they can only be seen only 2 seasons before. So I just think some continuity with your like storytelling as a brand with position to celebrity needs to be, I just think there needs to be a little bit of continuum.
Yeah, it goes back to that gang thing, doesn't it? And feeling like they're genuine relationships. I was interested also just kind of to tie it to the show about the use of Marina Abramovic, because obviously what's interesting there is, you know, she's an artist, not a celebrity, but very much kind of a name on everyone's lips at the moment. And I was interested that they kind of tapped her for the show as well. And you know, she kind of orchestrated these different performances that were going on throughout the show. And I think that's interesting is also the way fashion is always keen to get that person who's on everyone's lips. And
Marina Abramovic and Riccardo, they've been close friends for a long time. I remember, you know, going to one of the very first collections of Givenchy in Paris, you know, when maybe like, let's say 6 or 7 years ago, Marina Abramovic was already there as a guest. You know, they got a fantastic relationship. You know, there was another performance during the show of Marina, so it's not the first time.
And she is incredible. I mean,
they understand each other very well, you know, because of all that kind of, you know, Riccardo is from southern Italy, and you know, with all that kind of very deep Catholicism, you know, Marina is from
and I'm pleased.
You know,
I think about that collaboration that she did at the Pace Gallery with Jay-Z, and then she's come out since then saying actually how unhappy she was with the collaboration, and she felt like she was used. I don't know.
She got a bit of a backlash with the Adidas as well. Because that was her. People thought that she'd really sold out to a brand. But ultimately, as an artist, and she's emblematic of, you know, now in the art scene. And you were talking also about this cross culture. I thought it was really funny how you know, a lot of people look up to Michelle Lamy, Rick Owens' wife, and you know, when she's in New York, she's hanging out with A$AP Rocky. You know, they're going to all the gallery openings. So there's all this crisscross of cultures going on.
Should we watch the trailer that she did?
I don't know if you saw the note that was actually on everyone's seats from Marina Abramovic. It was actually very touching, you know, while she was having all those performances, you know, 7 different kind of cultures and the you know, the recycled things.
She lays her soul bare when she does her performances, and I think that's why you can only respect that in somebody.
I mean, did you go to the Serpentine Gallery when she was?
I didn't.
That was really touching. I mean, I remember I was very lucky because she came to pick me up and to take me all around the room, and she made me sleep on it. And actually I was so, you know, before getting into this art performance, you have to leave your watch and your phones away. And I was actually in between 2 appointments. And I said, okay, let me go and see if I can squeeze in. And it was like 11 a.m. on a random day, so I managed to do it with no cue. But then all of a sudden I said, no, now you have to sit down here and listen to the music and forget about the time. I said, no, not her. But it was a magical experience. So she really believes in lots.
She's a great person to follow on Twitter, actually, because I've had little conversations with her before. She's great. And I've always kind of been really into her. And I remember she did something at the South Bank 2 years ago, and she actually tweeted, "Oh, are you coming?" And I thought, "Oh, that's really sweet."
Yeah,
you know,
really
like
cool. We have a really good interview.
But you love it. But you love it when it's when you know it's the actual person. You know, that's doing that tweeting, and it's not just
a minion.
Well,
let's see the trailer she did for the. This is just like a little teaser she did, but I think it gives a sense of kind of the ethos of what she was hoping to kind of do with her involvement in the show.
And fashion is like an art. The fashion show is not just about wearing the clothes and creating your style, but it's also a kind of spiritual transformation. His whole collection is about idea of love and peace. Only the way how to stop killing is to learn to forgive. So it's about forgiveness. It's not to forget in the past, but remembering the past, but looking into the more happy future.
It's nice.
Oh, I wanted more.
Yeah, it's just a little teaser, but we can see the. I actually think maybe it's worth us. I want to talk as we watch the show about couture and the future of how Givenchy are going to show their couture, because it was really interesting at the last menswear show how kind of as a surprise, you know, they included couture, and I think everyone was really pleased to see that, and it went down very well. Obviously it was a frustrating forum in some ways, because I was obviously really excited to have it there, but the majority of the menswear press obviously just don't care at all. I think they're quite happy to see like a lot of really hot girls on the runway. But it was interesting to see that shown in that context again, because I think Givenchy couture really set the pace of modern couture in a lot of ways, and then it's kind of been not publicly shown for a while, so it was really exciting to see that. And again, it's kind of come back in this show. So.
The fashion councils hate it when they do that. I mean, even at London Fashion Week, if you're at the Women's Week and you put a couple of men's models on it, they don't like it. And again, the Chambre Syndicale would hate something like that. You know,
perfect time to catch up on posting.
I think it's great.
I think it's great.
Worked.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant.
Because they're trying to keep their couure week going, and if you take it out of that context and think, oh, we can do it anyway when we're doing our men's show, or you know, it's
they worry about that.
I also think there aren't that many fashion journalists or stylists who actually cover both, so I think it is quite. I didn't realise that so much until we started seeing so much more women's wear in the menswear, and most of the menswear editors are kind of like, often because they do work for a men's title, just don't engage, and they're not interested, and I think it's a shame in some ways, because I do think to understand how a designer works, particularly with so much to do with kind of gender fluidity that everyone's talking about at the moment, but like to understand a designer's practice, the way they approach designing for women or designing for men, they are so entwined, and I don't think you can understand one without understanding the other.
Especially as menswear has become like, well, truly men's. It was you know, until about, I would say, 10 years ago, it was boring, and it's like with the likes of, you know, Raf and Givenchy pushing it forward, it's now creatively so interesting that you need those dual narratives, and you love seeing how, like, for example, Miuccia approaches a double narrative.
A really good example of it also, I think, is Raf at Dior, because actually what he's doing, the interplay between his own label and Dior, and even just like little details, like, you know, the 5 buttons and the way he's relating techniques from Dior onto his own label and vice versa. I think if you're trying to analyse Dior just as a women's wear editor with no understanding of his menswear, it's very, very hard.
You're massively losing the trick.
It's that landscape changing again, isn't it?
Yeah,
Talking of which, this morning on Business of Fashion, they sent their little weekly rounder, and they announced their team that are doing all the shows. No women.
Really?
Angela Flacavento, Tim Blanks, well, there was so I just thought I'd raise that point.
That is interesting.
But going back to the menswear show, I remember I was at this show.
It was a great show, wasn't it?
Fantastic show, and actually it made sense to see the women's wear there. I don't know, it was very much like part of the show. And in a way, you know, then going back to couture, because I was at men's and the couture shows, you know, you could go and see the clothes, you know, as appointments. So it's not that you're missing the women's journalists, because, you know, you can always get the appointments to go and see them live, hanging and by the details. But Riccardo's clothes, I suppose, make much more sense on a catwalk. Especially all the fringing, all the lace, you know, the movement, and, you know, the big hoops, the hairstyle. They go very well with the menswear. It's very much like his world.
You remember there were two seasons at least, when Riccardo just showed it kind of like installation.
And which was really amazing.
You could see things really close up and appreciate the workmanship. But at the same time, I think you missed out on the movement.
Actually, the criticism of, I remember, of talking to him, the criticism that he had presenting these haute couture collections just as an art installation, that they became pieces of art.
Yes.
So, he said, oh my God, this is an amazing gown with all, you remember he had almost like 2 swans made of very delicate feathers on hips and on lace and then plastic and studs. And he said, how literally someone can wear it? You can even sit on it. So you really want to see them live. And that is the magic of fashion in a way. So you cannot just create things that can be
and then you've got
beautifully shown there, hanging with the lights and whatever you want to put around it. They are literally clothes that people should wear.
Well, I was going to say that you've got someone like Grace Wells-Bonner who's landed on the menswear scene, where she does live tableaus. So they're installations, but they're on live models and there's slight movements.
I think it's interesting talking about movement with someone like him, because the thing with Riccardo Tisci, I think sensuality is so important to what he does, and it really informs his kind of ethos as a designer. So actually, when you see his clothes move, they make sense in a way, like the way the fringe swings even, or even like the level at which he'll have started, fringing or lace or sheer or embellishment. You need to see that.
It reminds you realistically of like what Givenchy. He is Givenchy. I mean, like obviously, Hubert is Givenchy, but you think of Givenchy now, you think of Riccardo. And actually, just bringing those girls in, because it was all about this idea, this collection, the jailbird and this idea of sort of like, you have all of these other great sort of codes coming through, but when the girls came into this collection, it reminds you again of the romanticism within the brand. So it's a brand building kind of thing.
But also, looking at, for example, this image, just for the styling of it. I mean, like that is a lace dress, a beautiful lace dress, but styled with some long how do you say, long boots, exactly. So it's very much like that, and it's a message of how romantic, as you said,
but a bit of S&M maybe as well,
with the streetwear or whatever.
And the audience have already seen Pat McGrath backstage applying all the lace onto the faces.
Oh my God,
the access and the dual narrative that's going on before the show's even started.
Should we look at the show? Should we see this season?
Yes.
Let's have a look. So we've kind of talked through a lot of the kind of special things that have happened, but as Mandi said, it was the 10 years of Riccardo at Givenchy, and obviously they've just opened this big store in America, which is really exciting. And as part of the show, they had Marina Abramovic kind of coordinating these different performances and amazing live music. So lots going on.
The world music theme's quite nice too.
It's interesting going back to that notion of a gang, because obviously Maria Colla's such a kind of muse to him.
Yeah.
And I think the way he cast this was really interesting.
Fabulous.
I think it's interesting just to look at that first look in relation to what you were saying, Mandi, right at the start about the kind of people who buy it, and you see a kind of very sensual kind of fashion top, but the fact that she's just wearing these really beautifully tailored black trousers, it's kind of nodding to those two aspects. So she wanted that kind of fashion side and then that timeless side, which is interesting.
Gorgeous.
What struck me about this show is how wearable it all looks as well. It's a selling collection, isn't it?
Really and all that white and lace is almost like a reference to, communion dresses.
Yes, exactly. That kind of lovely Gothic sort of South American Catholicism. The violin playing and so evocative.
There were quite a lot of falls.
Were there?
Yeah, there were.
On the stairs.
Yeah.
I like the way that they had the ushers on standby there.
I know, dived in. Poor thing, it's horrible falling. I hate it.
That happened once at a
Happened once
Castle-
at Vivian
no,
Westwood show,
the
didn't
Castle
it?
Bajac show, and they had fur, and
the Gucci show.
anti-fur demonstrator rushed onto the stage in Paris.
God.
2 security guards immediately came forward with fur coats to wrap her in it.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's awful.
But do you remember
That's
also the
awful.
Gucci show when there was a fur catwalk?
Yeah, yes.
And there was a girl, one of the very first Tom Ford, and the poor girl, she fell I think 3 times.
Yes.
It was
God.
so painful.
There are some really good YouTube montages of like best model falls, which I sometimes engage with.
It is very, very wearable.
It has a real Japanese sort of feel to the collection as well, you know, something that maybe I know that, you know, all great designers have had, like, you know, Hubert would have engaged with Japan as all the other great 20th have, but I did feel there's a real sort of like Japanese quality coming through.
There's
looking
those,
at how
there's those
French-
robe codes
Yeah.
coming through in the
Yeah.
collections.
Like the
Hilary
samurai.
Bartley, that's
Yeah,
a
I've
big
done those.
mainstay of their
Yeah.
new collection.
I think it's interesting the kind of softening of this as well, because you know
Yes.
they have billed it as kind of like looking back at some of his most iconic designs and famous
Gorgeous.
pieces from the 10 years.
Fabulous.
But I think there's a softness to it. I
Yeah.
think
All his
sometimes
Grecian kind of tropes that he's really built
Yeah.
up over the years, very central to this collection. All that beautiful like swagging and ruching and neoclassical kind of design.
But I think there's a primness to it that feels quite new, perhaps. I think sometimes when you think of his woman, you do think of her as very sensual, but almost quite sort of laced in or pushed
Yes.
up. And I think this kind of like the fact that things are kind of falling off, or you know, slightly asymmetric. I think that was a really nice way of updating some of the pieces that he's really known for. So it was really.
But there's almost sort of, it's virginal
Yeah, exactly.
in some respects.
Yeah, he's showing a lot of restraint to say that this is a big shebang.
Yeah.
Whereas
But I think that's what I really like when designers do something where it's quite such a massive production, but then I love that the palette is so pure, and it's like, because it does mean you focus on kind of more of the intricacies, because it would have been really easy to do.
that was my
really-
favourite look in the whole
I
show.
love that. I think
Yeah.
that's
I
absolutely
thought that stood out
gorgeous.
straight away.
Yeah, beautiful.
Wonderful.
And they are a bit, you know, like when we reviewed, Galliano's couture debut for Margiela, the idea of stripping back when he did the toiles at the end. These
Yeah.
are like soft toile
Yeah.
versions
Very
of
good
clothes
point.
that he's
Yeah.
done. And the palettes that they're walking over, that denotes the messaging of it, like strip back, a work in
Yeah.
progress. So it feels very like, maybe we said humble.
Yeah. I
Yes.
think it is about also just kind of like solidifying his identity there, and I think it's really, when you've done 10 years somewhere, it's like, it's nice to do something that's kind of almost, a little bit like, that kind of level of restraint, and something that is a little bit kind of pure, and because he doesn't really need to prove anything with this show, and I think
He's
that's
shown he
what's
can
quite
do
interesting.
showstoppers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's shown all that.
We are saying this, and then there's some like absolutely amazing gowns coming later.
I think it was a very pure collection. I mean, literally his best. You know,
Yeah.
It's very much like closing these 10 years of.
Yeah,
Because I remember
completely.
the very beginning when he was. When
Yeah.
he first started, you know, nobody knew if to like him or not,
Yeah.
what was going on, you
Yeah.
know, no heritage of the Givenchy, maybe just
Yeah.
the white shirts that he presented, the tailoring, that there was, he's been brave.
Yeah,
completely reorganizing and
Yeah.
revamping the house of
Yeah.
Givenchy that was done.
And when you
Yeah.
think of his early shows in Milan,
yeah.
I mean, it was almost like savage.
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
primal.
Yeah.
Totally.
And what I think is really beautiful about this is that actually there's a timelessness to it.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to look back on this in 100 years' time, and people will be able to look for what he stood for.
Yeah.
And it's all about classicism and actually like who he was. And there is that sort of like archive, just respect, like this is who I was at Givenchy.
Yeah. This dress that's coming is
the
amazing.
John Small one is fun.
Yeah.
Oh, there's that outfit
Yeah.
again, Mandi.
But also, I think for that audience, you know, the public that are there, these are looks that they can replicate.
Yeah.
You know, they can,
Yeah.
you know, you can get a vintage white lace
Yeah.
dress. It's
Yeah.
a monochromatic palette.
Yeah.
It's you know,
black
it's quite
trousers, yeah.
achievable. For
I
that.
think that's right. I think it's interesting, and I think he's kind of hinted at this in certain interviews that he likes how much his look has influenced the street, and I think that's. I love it when designers have the confidence that they don't actually even need people to buy their clothes to know that they've been
Like
successful.
Mark.
But it's interesting,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
with that
yeah.
when. like he can see kids who are huge fans who are probably wearing clothes that are so related to this aesthetic, but actually would never buy it. They're buying their own version.
Yeah, but Topshop are going to have the lace dresses.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
possibly asymmetric with a hip thing sticking out.
But when you can do that as a designer, that's really amazing. When you're not just, it's not just about your product. I think there's actually quite a few designers where
like Marc Jacobs, who's just like, I don't care if people copy me. That means that just shows how relevant I am.
Yeah, but if they don't copy you, you've got a problem.
Yes, feathers.
Now on, all these couture pieces is simply divine.
And the face embellishment, like Pat McGrath with that, it is amazing.
Yeah, incredible.
But I remember the very first,
what
was it, 4 seasons ago, when they first came out with all the embellishments on the crystals on the face.
It was amazing.
It wasn't.
But I think it's so interesting the way it's like the subtle, because when there was all the nose rings and it's just kind of it ties into all of that. Yeah. But just a new way of doing it, and it's really, really amazing.
Is magnificent.
That coat.
But that reminds you of, it's just there's so many collections. You're like, that's a kind of connection to that one.
But I think that notion of armour as well is something that you really think about with him as well, and that kind
he's played with that North American sort of tribal look.
Look at the face. Look at the.
Beautiful. It's funny with all the jewellery, because with the autumn-winter collection that's just gone in the stores, all the stores have bought the septum ring and all the bits and bobs, and it's just funny to see that. It's almost like the first season he did that, they wouldn't buy it, wouldn't touch it, and now they're all thinking, the customer wants it.
Yeah, I mean, all these lace and this dress is fantastic. I think these are all pieces of crocodile. Literally all cut out and again sewn in on tulle.
It's amazing.
Something that is done before, and it's incredible.
I'm really pleased that he's brought his culture and his global perspective of what Givenchy is to New York, and that he hasn't just given a New York show, because he could have done something very street and very sort of just
predictable. It's actually contextualised it. I think that's a really good point
really
you made.
Nice that he's done that.
Well, I think in a way it's interesting that Gianluca said brave, because I think that's the thing is the whole setup of the show would have really lent itself to doing something that wasn't particularly subtle, that was a real showstopper, loads of just amazing prints and colours, and do something but this is kind of very pared back and also difficult in some ways. We will look at that face embellishment and think it's amazing because we love Pat McGrath and we've seen them do it before, but I imagine to some people that is it's a bit of a shock, and it's not necessarily, it's beautiful, but it's awkward and it's ugly at the same time.
I think it's a message about consumerism as well, because I think if he had all those obvious pieces, or the pieces that one would expect, then the person watching is like, I want that top, right, I'm going to put my name on the guest list. But actually that audience that would normally engage with that, they've been stopped in their tracks, and they're actually having to think about what's being put in front of them.
And it's so shareable on Instagram. I think that a lot of the people that are there will be really inspired by this world that they don't quite, that they understand, but maybe not quite fully.
That's what you want from a creator, from a designer, to be inspired. I mean, how many other designers are so uninspiring? Well, these at least, it's a message, like it or not, but it's a fantastic message.
Yeah. I love to think of loads of Tumblr kids in their bedrooms sticking stuff onto their faces.
But I was thinking recently that I really think that what Riccardo Tisci's done for Givenchy is what Dolce & Gabbana should be doing with their own brand. They're hauled up in this Sicilian narrative. They're not really looking at anything globally apart from Italy. And I think
last season when they did the China thing, that was so offensive.
But when they do it, it's really not. It's not good. And I think that he's a great example of a Latin sort of, a brand with such a Latino sort of aesthetic and spirit, just being so relevant.
It does just feel really global as well. And I also
very
think
global.
You see the way, even just the way he treats, the way he designs, it doesn't feel like it's designed for just a white woman, white slender woman. And I think there's such a global ethos that runs through everything he does. And I think that you don't see enough of that in fashion at all, where it's not just designed for this willowy.
He understands African culture, Indian culture, Asian culture.
Yeah, but also not just the culture. I also think what kind of the shoppers and body shapes and all aspects of that. It's never just kind of, and I think that just doesn't happen in fashion enough. I find it so annoying.
Absolutely.
This is a huge collection, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely massive. It's 88 looks. It's like Armani.
Oh.
I know.
That's beautiful, isn't it? I mean, really incredible.
You'd really, if you were one of the public that had got a ticket, you really would have felt like had a good
I'm
time.
getting my money's
you're getting
worth,
a proper
yes.
show.
But you know, some of these looks remind me of, you know, like Stella's ease, you know, like she really cares about women.
Yeah.
And she really
Yes.
like understands women.
Which is so unusual from a male designer, isn't
Yeah,
it?
and there's really a lot of that spirit coming through, the softness and the draping. The lingerie kind of.
Just go back to that point we were making about couture. Do we think it is better to see couture shown alongside fashion that is, like, you know, ready to wear or menswear or what have you? Because I think in a way, if you're thinking about trying to convince people of the relevance of couture, I think even sometimes it's just to see it
I think
next
people
to.
think it undermines the other pieces, so the couture is always going to look resplendent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you,
Yeah, I don't believe there should be a mix, but again, you know,
Do you
I always believe in the purity of couture. That you know, it's got so much more workmanship, different kind of clientele, one-off pieces. But again, for this event, it was very much like celebrating the world of Riccardo Tisci in 10 years. I can do menswear, I can do pret-à-porter, I can do couture, let's go for it. So again, as I said, if this was shown in the middle of April or May, nothing to do with the New York Fashion Week, you know, would have been exactly the same. So celebrating again him in New York.
there's something quite spiritual about this whole shebang, you know. It reminds me of when Rifat Ozbek did his all-white collection in 1990.
Yeah,
because, you know, if you think it's 9/11, Marina's involved, the music, the poignancy, and this humble affair, when we expected, you know, stardust, it's quite...
In a way, I think it would have felt a bit, like, not crass, but like on the anniversary of 9/11, like, I think it's such a fine line to walk. I think the fact that he did such a big show, such a big production, so many celebrities
to do a big celebration would have been crass.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So I think it walked a really fine line between being a bit of a kind of memorial, a bit of a celebration. I think that's really hard. Like, people can get really offended when I think fashion tries to nod to kind of like politics or anything kind of related to society and tries to do any kind of goodwill. It's a really hard line to walk.
There's also a really lovely emotional hook to him, with possibly this sort of very respectful kind of narrative on a personal level, not just 9/11.
Yes.
But his father always promised one day that he would take his mum to New York.
I love that.
And he never did. He died. So he's like, I got to take my mum to. I'm going to cry thinking about it.
So
But, you know, I got to be the person to take my mum to New York.
Yeah, that's really cute.
And actually, like, he has a very, just the relationship that his mom always saw New York as being this, you know, city of dreams, and he got to be the person to take her there,
really
and his
cute.
father couldn't. So, you know, there's that kind of almost like a, there is that sort of that kind of vibe of wedding, christenings, funerals.
Well, yeah, it's interesting, that kind of notion of occasion wear, because I think, like, and I don't mean that in terms of party wear, but like as in looking at this, it feels like outfits for different elements of a woman's life. So like christening, wedding, and
hints of funeral, hints of angel.
Which is very calm.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean about these Japanese kind
ceremony,
of like, you know, this idea of ceremony, like all of these
interesting.
looks. It's like Yoji in the boudoir. I think it's, I mean, it's interesting, like the last collection, the menswear one, it was the idea of Jesus Christ being the
another one.
The ultimate
One
pin-up.
bites the dust.
Was that Harmony Boucher just before as well? It's great casting, isn't it?
Yeah, really good casting.
I think also going back to the 9/11 thing, we all remember what it was like that day working in the fashion industry. You know? I think, you know, we all suddenly thought, oh my God, this is so trivial, fashion. It's like, oh, let's cancel Fashion Week. And then we were in the boardroom at Vogue House, where, do you remember, Hilary, where
No,
Susie...
I was in New York.
Of course you were. Well, Susie Menkes had to say to everybody, the show must go on, and almost like made
Rally
us have
troops,
helped us keep a focus, because we were just in pieces. I mean, everyone was listening to it live on the radio or TV, and the soundtrack was, you know, Fire Cruise. I mean, it's really quite a kind of, you know, it's like, where were you when Kennedy was shot, that kind of thing.
I remember ringing my photographer, and we were staying in the Walton, and saying, I'll see you over, should we walk over to Michael Kors together? He said, I'm not doing a show, there's a huge fire at the World Trade Center. I said, what? He said, turn on the telly. And that was that.
Yeah, my brother was in New York actually when it happened as well, and he was trying to get to a studio in downtown in Soho. He was like, couldn't get on a bus, and he was like, what's going on? And everybody was crowded around like all the electrical shops trying to watch the TVs, and he didn't have a mobile at the time, and he was just like, we didn't hear from him for a couple of days because trying to queues down the road, trying to use payphones, and it was a real moment in time.
We walked around, I went with 2 or 3 photographers. It took us about, I think, 3.5 hours to walk all the way from Rotten right down to as close as we could get to the World Trade Center. And we walked around about 4:30 in the morning. We couldn't get right into it, but it was literally over the tops of my trainers in ash.
Yeah.
And there were bits of clothing and ties. It was.
And then, of course, all the candles came out, didn't they? And people started lighting candles. And
but I think that's when it's interesting you talk about that notion of the show going on, because I think it's like you can see fashion in different ways. You can see it as something that is kind of like inappropriate, and how can we be doing these big productions and things that are so kind of over the top and about consumerism when all this horrible stuff is going on in the world. But then you also see it as this kind of time of like these moments of escapism and of like tenderness, and I think that's quite interesting as well, when something like this, when it's done really well.
What
you
a gorgeous
think,
finale.
Yeah, you think what brings people together.
well, like Gianluca was saying earlier on, like about his connections to Americana and American culture, and you know, he did Stars and Stripes in the last menswear collection. He couldn't have really done all that. I mean, he could have done, but it would have been like, entering American culture on such a poignant day. I remember at Arena Home Plus, like, you know, I was there when we had to pulp the issue with Justin Timberlake on the front cover.
Oh my God, I was promoting that issue because I was doing their PR, and I was working late at 9/11, and I was so inexperienced then. I mean, I just thought, God, how am I going to deal with this? You know, Justin Timberlake stood in front of a burning flag, was about to be released.
An American flag with flames.
Amazingly, because we had a lot of tabloid press coming out, amazingly, the tabloid were just amazing, you know, because you thought you'd ring them up and they'd all say, oh no, we're still running it, but they were just so incredible.
We have a project on Show Studio called Killed, which is all the editorials and covers that came out around 9/11, either just before or just after, that had to be kind of pulled or removed because of it. And there's a brilliant essay by Joanne Furness. It's really great, so check that out.
Yeah.
How many models were there altogether? If you count the men.
I think there's a model for every look, so there must be 88.
Wow.
Can you imagine? It is really, really beautiful.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that it is in New York, and I think it's really smart what you just said, Lucy, about how he hasn't actually. We talked, as Gianluca said right at the start, like you can go through all his collections, and it's so much about Americana and American culture.
Yeah, he's earned his seat on this day in New York, hasn't he?
But then he hasn't really done that here. It's almost like he doesn't need to prove anything else.
He's brought the world to New York. He hasn't just sold out.
Yeah.
People will feel like they've been at a show in Milan or Paris here.
Yeah, he's got the pitch perfectly right.
Yeah.
And also, like, I don't know who else is going to create a wonderful show like this in New York.
Especially in New York is like so like.
Oh my God! Have you seen the schedule of New York Fashion Week? It is just packed with the biggest load of drops, and you have to actually really concentrate really hard to see something that you recognise that you know is good.
And everything
that's the shows, and they have this layer of presentation, which is.
It's packed with a load of drops.
I've tweeted about it before. Like,
it's
just
so like.
first few days don't count.
Oh, the first day is always pretend fashion
like
week.
Half a day where there's like nothing to do. Like it's so weird.
We always call the first day of fashion week pretend fashion week.
Yeah. There are some good brands that show up front, but
I think Zach Posen showed in the evening on Wednesday, didn't he? That was pre.
So what would we say is next for kind of Givenchy in terms of, like, we've kind of touched on a lot of things that kind of sum up Riccardo Tisci's aesthetic there. How do we think he can, what's kind of next for his Givenchy? How is his aesthetic going to develop?
He might be able to move forward now. This is almost like drawing a line.
Yeah, because it was those kind of back references to iconic.
Yeah, we don't know with him.
Yeah.
Maybe rebirth next season.
Do you think he'll show in London? Will he keep on moving around?
I don't know. I think they'll probably go back to Paris.
I think he'll go back to Paris.
Yeah.
Or maybe Milan.
I don't think so. Givenchy.
You know something you're not saying.
I don't actually. No, but you know, Givenchy and Milan, they don't.
No.
The name.
I love
the
the way
two
you're
names, they don't
speculating
fit
and
well.
the paint isn't even, the show's still going on.
No, I don't mean in terms of like, oh, what's next, what's the message next. I more just mean it's interesting. I think I think the fact that they have pushed so much about this being the 10 years, obviously it relates to the store opening and it's a good kind of media hook. But I think,
but will it be not necessarily closed, but will it be the time to launch a perfume?
Yeah, you think about how the
And don't forget the new denim line.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot happening there.
I think it's interesting that, you know, Chanel's in New York doing a pop-up launching their boyfriend watch this week. So, you know, Carl wants a bit of share of voice, and it's funny, I hashtag Parisians in New York. It's like this idea of like jumping on there and kind of benefiting off that hype, isn't there, and being part of that.
I think it's a great gift to New York Fashion Week.
Yeah, oh my God.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh.
Wow.
Thank you, Ricardo.
The lights kept down for his finale as well.
That's Anna jumping.
Yeah, Anna running. So we're impressed then, we love it.
Oh,
yes,
totally.
Loved it.
I think I just saw Alexander Wang.
Alexander Wang as
Yeah,
well.
a lot of
was
designers
there.
actually went
Yeah,
through
you Michael
Wang.
Kors,
Yeah.
Alexander Wang, Vera
Went
Wang.
to Schuler. So we love it. Do we think it's interesting?
Yeah.
I think Mandi, you summed it up really well when you said it's a great gift to New York Fashion Week, because you also think, you know, like amongst all the kind of like, it's nice to see.
The D word.
Yeah. So should we give him a round of applause?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.